So good evening to all those who could make this webinar, the session this evening. Apologies for having to move it out from last week to this week. But I say welcome to Craig Pederson. So most of you probably know Craig. For those who don't, I'll maybe just share how I met Craig, and then Craig can introduce himself. So not too long ago, I saw on LinkedIn that somebody in Cape Town is releasing a new book called Think Before You Click. And me not wanting to miss out, made my way to the book launch. And that's where I met Craig. And since then, we've been buddies. Craig came to Ensign. He spoke to most of our organization, spent the whole day with us. And there's just so much stories and insights and things that we can learn from Craig. And I thought it would be ideal to bring him to this platform as well and allow the broader cybersecurity community in Cape Town to also engage with him directly. So Craig, on that note, maybe just do an introduction about yourself, a little bit about the history, 2-3 minutes, and then we'll get into some probing questions.
Okay, probing at this time of night. Where do I start? Okay, well, I'm obviously Craig. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that part out. What am I by profession is sometimes a little bit of a difficult one to explain, in that I have multiple functions. I'm a qualified digital forensics examiner. I'm a qualified fraud examiner and certified cybercrime investigator at the same time. As you can see, there is no Photoshop on these damn things, so I have a lot of gray hairs, although I still think I look reasonably good for 25. The industry treats me well. Why do I have these 3 odd qualifications when actually any of them is a standalone field on its own? Does it make me a jack of all trades? Not really. In essence, I am a cybercrime investigator, but you can't investigate cybercrime if you don't understand technology, and you can't work with the digital forensic side of things to understand the output of what you're doing. And then finally, 90% of cybercrime has a financial motive at heart. There's money, in which case you need to understand fraud. So it's the accumulation of qualifications in order to get to a particular point. In between that, I've got 2 kids, 1 wife, 1 horse, 3 cats, and apparently since Sunday I've also got a chicken. Why I have a chicken, I don't know, but it's quite an amusing little thing to watch. I live in Cape Town, but I traverse between the two. So although I live in Cape Town, a lot of my work is in Pretoria. So I live between Cape Town and Pretoria, and I bounce between them, depends where the work goes. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm also a student. I'm busy finishing my master's at the moment, even at my advanced age, just because I can. Doing a master's in cybercrime investigation and digital forensics with the University College Dublin, and with a lot of luck, a large volume of Red Bull, and a bit of tailwind, I should be done with that in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And that's me in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, no, thank you, Craig. So, Craig, I've got 2 or 3 probing questions, as I mentioned, and then I really do want people on the call to also pose their questions and for the conversation to take on a life of its own. Now, if you think of a typical person wanting to explore a career in digital forensics, right? And I say, Craig, what would you suggest early on in my career? What are the skills I need to focus on? What do I need to study? What should I be doing? I'm currently working in IT, or I'm a student, but where I'm standing, forensics is my thing, and where do I start?
Medication, a lot of it. Okay, so let's think about the starting point. There are 2 or 3 different angles from which one can get into the digital forensics as a career. The first angle is you've got to be an investigator. You must know how to investigate or learn how to investigate, and you must have a natural desire to solve problems. I'd love to say this is a textbook type career, push button A, do B, follow process 3. In reality, you have an objective in mind, and it's how you're going to solve the problems that prevent you from getting there. So an investigative ability, a lot of people come into the industry, not as many as we'd like, but do come in from an investigative background. Then you have the technical direction where people are enamored with the technology and the technical aspects and the technical challenges that come with it as a career. And then finally, you have those who are more interested in it from a fraud direction. I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, you cannot commit a crime without a digital trail. It's not possible. So those are the three main avenues. If I was saying, let's say, somebody with a technical background, somebody who's in IT, and wants to migrate more towards digital forensics as a career path, again, start with lots of drugs, and a lot of patience, because it's going to take patience. Now, it depends where your hop-off point is. If I look around my office, we've got about 30 staff between Cape Town and Pretoria. Our lab manager in Cape Town walked into my office about 6 years ago, pulled by his ear by his mother, and is a technician at heart. He was, I think, in grade 9, or what's it, grade 11, standard 9. And he decided that he'd come to the IT company for a discovery day and ended up here. So we told him to go away, finish matric, get an A+, N+, security plus, the normal certification bundle as a broad overview. And then he'd need to get experience. A year and 6 months later, he was back at the door again. Where does he get experience? So we set him some tasks, gave him some guidance on working for NGOs. Don't work for money, work for experience first. The money will come later. He came back again after 6 months, and we just couldn't get rid of him. So eventually we decided, okay, well, we'll take him as a technical resource, and we used him in the technical part of the business to get and build his technical understanding. From there, he's grown into the forensics position, and training is kind of paralleled with that. So he's got a terrific grounding in the technical aspects, augmented by understanding the legalities of chain of custody, lab process and control, the ISO standards, how to apply them, how to do imaging and analysis. And now he's on the path of the cybercrime investigation and Windows artifact analysis. So I would never advise that anybody go out, study digital forensics straight out of school and go into the industry. It's not going to work well. It's very much an experience-based industry. And a lot of people come in from corporate environment where they follow the CISM methodology, and they have a management level understanding of ICT and the application of ICT within the business. They may not be screwdriver people and hands-on, but they understand the topology, they understand how networks mesh together, and the business dynamics that actually drive it, and the inference when there is a problem, or a breach or a compromise. And they come in from that perspective, and it's more management level. Finally, we see a lot of people coming into the industry from an audit and accounting background, where they're used to the fraud aspect and the investigative side, and they don't necessarily want to learn the technical skill. They want to learn the investigative aspect of it. Any, mini, miny, mo. Let me look. Okay, what's an investigative background? No, you've got to investigate that and find out for yourself. Just kidding. Investigative background. So investigation is actually very misunderstood. It's really misunderstood. It's not a case of, let me ask questions. Where do you start? Where do you pick a starting point in an investigation, whether it's fraud or digital? Well, there's a process to follow. There's a process. It's well documented. It's well studied. And there are various methodologies that you can use, like the timeline, a baseline, a forensic method, witness account method. There are specific interview techniques that we study, like read, stain, and piece, which teach you how to conduct an interview with the subject, whether it's a voluntary or hostile interview, how to read the body language, how to structure your questioning and your environment so that you get maximum result out of that interview time that you have got with them. You learn how to build the evidence, what's going to be needed in the case docket. How do you fill out part A, B, and C of a docket? Do you even need to, or is the police going to be doing that for you? What is your role in the prosecution of a case? Do you want to testify at court as an expert? Are you comfortable doing that? And there's a path that you have to follow to get admitted as an expert as well. Technical experience required, or is there administrative positions? Actually, it's very diverse. Yes, there are. So one of the well-known deficiencies in digital forensics in general is report writing. It is a very, very unusual skill to find a technical person that has that. You're normally going to find that there's somebody with an administrative background and a communications background that's going to collect the technical data and turn it into something that will either become a corporate presentation report or will be an outcomes report, or is actually going to become a written statement and go to court. And that report writing in itself is almost a full career and a full field, and it's very hard to find one. There are not a lot of people that can do forensic report writing. It is quite precise and long-winded, and it's a bit of an art form to keep it on track. Biddy. Pick up.
Craig, while you are reading, let me throw something in. So one thing I'm noticing recently is that more and more investigators are being targeted. So you often read that somebody was investigating a high-profile case, and then a hit was taken out on the person, and the person is no more. Now that can obviously discourage people from taking up digital forensics as a career. How do you manage that effectively? Because I might have a great passion for this, but I also have a passion for living my life.
Yep. I'd like to say it's not that it isn't so, but as you well know, it is. It's tragically in South Africa a pretty regular occurrence. Forensic investigator, you've also got to be prepared to move. You need to travel. If you don't like airports and you don't like airplanes, this is probably not a good career choice. There's a lot of moving around, and you don't always get to choose where you go. So we're based in South Africa. We end up doing a lot of work in the neighboring countries. Sometimes the environment can be a bit hostile. It's as dangerous as being here. What do you do? How do you do it? I have a bit of a law enforcement background originally, so I'm used to the risk, and I've done this for 25 years. Had the scrapes could go with it. I think you grow acclimatized to it, and it's something that you have a passion for and you feed a passion for, but you cannot be blindsided to the fact that there are a couple of changes to your lifestyle that have to take place. You do get used to living a little bit more of a private lifestyle, protecting your personal details. You get used to being a bit more aware when you're driving around and moving around. If I look in the corner of my office, the bulletproof vest and all the normals that are there, it is a hazardous environment if you are doing frontline forensics. It's just one of those things you have to acclimatize to.
So Craig, one last question on that specific point. Can one do forensics but not be on the front line? So I'm doing all the analysis, but I'm never going to court.
Absolutely. There's a lot of behind the scenes sort of work that's there. I made a conscious decision years ago that I don't like being in the front line. I don't particularly like talking to people. It's not my favorite skill set. I've learned to acquire it. But it's either I'm going to have to do it or my staff are going to have to do it. And I think if you look around online, you'll probably be able to identify 5 or 6 of our staff. The other have no digital footprint at all. And we keep them a bit of a distance away from the frontline activities of the business itself. Purely, it's not their thing. They don't want to get involved in that end of it.
No, thank you, Craig. Let me see if there's any other questions. Anton had one here. Anton was asking specifically around courses and institutes to recommend. I know that SANS comes up a lot as the go-to. Maybe share some of your thoughts around institutions.
Okay. It's always a difficult one. Okay, there are two paths within forensics: vendor agnostic and vendor based. It's quite acceptable, if depending on your background, to go and do a course on a specific product. So, like in our lab, for example, we're very fond of magnet axiom. We use it a lot. The magnet axiom training course actually covers all of the fundamentals of digital forensics and the full scope of digital forensics and hard drive and cell phone forensics, but interwoven around their product specifically. So they teach you the fundamental concepts, but it is very product specific. And the same can be said for Xtero and FTK and Encase and all of the other product lines, where you'll see, you'll go into one of their websites, you'll see the product costs $4,000, $5,000 or $8,000, and the training is $5,000, and you immediately think, whoa, how complex is your product that I need that amount of training to use it? It's because the training incorporates the foundation elements of digital forensics in a Windows and a media-based environment. That is the one route. I'm biased. I'm not a huge fan. I don't like to be bound to any vendor or any particular product. I like to be able to use my brain and a keyboard and whatever tools I have to hand. Which leads me to SANS. And as training goes, it doesn't get better. They are the world leader for a reason. Their courses are hardcore. If you think you're going to go on a SANS 508 and it's a 5-day course, and you think you're going to arrive with base knowledge, and in 5 days you're going to kind of leave qualified and ready to hit the field, it's going to be a rough week. It's not going to happen. You know, those 5 days are a cram session. There's a lot of prep work beforehand that goes into it. And in those 5 days, that knowledge will be crammed into your head and contextualized in such a way that you will be able to pass the exam. But it's still only a 5-day course. Hold on to your hat. They are not the cheapest courses in the world. A basic SANS course is going to cost you about $6,000, and they are only held in America and Europe and Emirates, which means add in flights, accommodation at the hotel, etc., and you are pretty much in for about between 250 and 300,000 rand for a 5-day course. And there's a progression of those that need to be followed as well, in that you can't just jump in and do Windows forensics. You do need to do the baseline forensics first, and then onto Windows forensics, cellular, Android, or whichever specialization you choose. So those courses are really expensive, but they are worth money. You do get your money's worth. And from an employer perspective, somebody who's got a forensic practice, if somebody comes across my desk and they have a GX certification, I don't really need to interview them. I know what they can do. The exam standards are relentless. You pass or you do not. Those are the two options. There's no 30 percentile. You do know what you're doing when you leave that course. You might still need a bit of lab work. You might need some field time, but they are incredibly well respected. Do they add value to your bottom line salary? In South Africa, maybe not today, but kind of watch that space. Next couple of years, I think you're going to find that it's going to become the de facto standard.
Thank you, Greg. No, some great insights there. So, Greg, Daryl had a question, and he was asking on behalf of one of his mentees, any good conferences that you recommend for people to attend who's wanting to pivot into this field? I shared the link there. I know end of next month there's a cybercrime conference happening here in Cape Town. It's the first of its kind, so the link is there for those to check it out. But your thoughts on conferences?
Okay, there's a couple that you shouldn't miss. In no particular order either. Okay, so no particular order, but IAFCI, International Association of Financial Crime Investigators. It is the working parts of financial crime investigation, and it's drawing more and more cybercrime investigators. It's the only body that has the CCCI designation, really. It's the right place to be. Membership is not tremendously expensive. It's about $1,000 a year. Meets once a month in all the main city centers around South Africa. Very sociable people. A lot of experience there that you can learn from.
Great. Sorry, I want to get that name.
IAFCI.
FCI.
Yep, International Association of Financial Crimes Investigators.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg.
So that's IFCI. The other one is the ACFE, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. ACFE is by design more accountants and attorneys, but the propeller heads are there. We are present. We're in the minority, but we're there. The ACFE conference takes two forms. There's a regional conference, and then there's the national one around September every year. National one is obviously great. It runs over 3 days. There's a core of some of the very best speakers in South Africa, and then they allow a few plebs like me to sneak in as well. B-sides, I would highly advise joining in B-sides. The ICFP, Institute of Commercial Forensic Practitioners, is sort of local version, if you will, of the ACFE. Also very good, some great knowledge in there, particularly around financial crimes more than cyber, but again, a great body of knowledge, super people to work with, very knowledgeable.
Apologies, that last one again, I'm just posting the links as you mentioned them.
ICFP, Institute of Commercial Forensic Practitioners.
Thank you.
Those would be the baselines. Those are normally the conferences that I make sure that I'm at every year. SANS also does the SANS Cyber Summit once a year. This year's one is unfortunately gone already. There is rumor they might do another. Otherwise, it'll be February next year. And the SANS OSINT Summit is free to attend. It's online, runs over 3 days. And oh my hat, you will find the very best in the world, literally, in 3 days of workshops. And it's very hard not to learn something. You know, if you choose your workshops carefully, you find some really stunning skills in there and very approachable people that are keen to share the knowledge. They're not getting paid to be there. They're not there for the money. They're there to share. And it's one thing I've got to be very, very clear about, that this is an industry where you're going to find, you're going to encounter two types of people. Those who will keep it close to their chest and they're not going to share anything with you. If you want to go into the industry, good luck, find your path. If you find it, we'll see you there. Then you will find those who don't mind sharing information and who try to share information. And the reason that we do that is, do we really want to create our own competition? Actually, yes, we do. It's an incredibly big marketplace. It's horrendously underserviced. There are not enough investigators. We turn work away on a day-to-day basis because it's out of our scale or out of our scope, or we just don't have the capacity to do it. So if we don't show people the right direction and help them grow with that, we've got only ourselves to blame. You know, we only have ourselves to blame along the way. So it is really important that we share information with people, that we help them and guide them with their career path, so that they can learn and experience a little bit more. You will find that most of the forensic practices do run a discovery day every now and then, where they'll invite people from the outside to come in and have a look, see what we do, how we do it, spend some time in the different departments and get a bit of a deeper understanding of how it's broken down, and what the job actually entails. Conference-wise, B-sides are definitely up there. I think locally, those are the key ones. Those are the places to be where you're going to get the best feedback and the best input from the industry.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Craig. I quite like the discovery days that you mentioned. Any chance you're running some of those in this year coming up?
We do. We schedule them a little bit in advance where we can, because we've got to obviously make sure we're not working on anything sensitive. We've got to make sure that the lab is clear for the day. We will probably schedule one for around November this year. So if anybody would like to join in, they're more than welcome to pop me a message on LinkedIn or something, and we can put you in touch with Jackie and keep you in touch with the crazy crowd here and see if we can put something together. I mean, we have areas that might be of interest to your members as well. A lot of people don't realize we have a forensic development team that sits next door. They are programmers. That's all they do. But the tools that they create are forensic tools. And as far as I'm aware, they're the only forensic development team in the country. There are others that do a bit of data modeling and do particular elements of, but they're, as far as I know, the only ones that actually, where we have a dedicated team of forensic developers. If you pop out of the office, you can meet guys like Hanru. As I say, Hanru has been with us for a couple of years. I think I might even see him lurking around somewhere here. I'm sure I saw him pop in. And Hanru, there we go. Hello, Hanru. Hanru, turn your camera on. Stop hiding away. Hanru's our lab manager. He runs lab, and he's incredible. Oh God, I'm going to give him an ego. He's incredibly bright, very talented, and very diligent. And I have to give Hanru credit. Hanru has got the patience of a saint, because we've made him wait. Hanru was, I think, 3 years. We've made him wait nearly 3 years to kind of get onto the path. There he is. Hanru, there you are. I think we've made you wait about 3 years to be able to do the good stuff.
Yeah, more or less 3 years. That's correct. Yes.
So has it been worth it?
Definitely.
Has it been worth the wait?
Definitely. Definitely. Check. I think I spoke to Grant actually one day. It's quite a journey. You need to start from the basics before you can just jump into the deep end. I mean, there's multiple certifications, but you need to have one main focus at the end of the day. So it's super.
See, that'll
Good to
teach
see you
to
again,
get into
Andrew.
meetings.
Awesome.
If you guys have any questions you want to ask Hanru from a technical point of view, from somebody who's young and actually learning from scratch, hey, he's there. By all means, ask.
Yeah, I think actually at this point, Craig, all the probing questions have been covered. So I'd like to actually open it up. If there's any questions from the people on the call, put up your hand. You don't have to type it out or come off mute and just engage with us. Let's see.
Hanru, what do you think? Are you happy to do a discovery day in November? Let people come and have a look at the lab and see what it's about.
Definitely. I'm keen. We can show them around, show them the ticks and trips, and then we can do it.
Excellent.
Always keen to show people around.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Have I missed anything here? So why do I do this? I'll ask myself that, Tracy, on a daily basis. Why do I do it? You know what? I'm probably an idiot, but it aggrieves me. It really aggrieves me that there are people out there with extremely good technical skills and technical abilities that they use to criminal ends. It bugs the living shit out of me that people who are well versed and well learned in the technical aspects of IT turn those skills to use against people. Maybe it's semantic, maybe it's moralistic, I don't know. I would like to think that people go into IT for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. And IT is actually quite a volatile area. We're so dependent. We saw that on Friday with the CrowdStrike drama. It can happen to the biggest of the big. Anything can go wrong at any point in time. And our businesses, our livelihood, our ability to buy food and pay for supper tonight, our ability to put petrol in our cars, to drink clean tap water, to have electricity, are all interdependent on IT systems. And somebody's got to protect and preserve that. There are unfortunately a stream of people in our office on a day-to-day basis that have lost their life savings, and they've worked 20, 30, 40 years to accumulate their pension money, and a cyber criminal does away with it in a matter of a day or two, and all for the sake of going and buying himself a new Porsche. Buying himself a new pool deck, and they're unrepentant. They don't care. Well, somebody's got to care. Somebody has to. And in the greater scheme of things, we are really the last bastion of hope that people have in many respects when it comes to cybercrime. Law enforcement does not always have the capacity, the tools, or the skill sets to do what we do. Is it because they're bad? Is it because they're lazy? No, it's because they're part of a very big, complicated system that just hasn't embraced technology correctly. I mean, Rue's asking a very good question there. How do we deal with syndicates? Because they always seem to be one step ahead. We pattern, we pass, and a lot of what we do is preemptive, where we can see a particular modus breeding out, and we will actually bait it to test the theory. We'll pattern it, and we will try and cut them off at the legs before they actually start. Sorry, Roxy. We'll actually start cutting them off at the legs before they get to victims. We spend a lot of time doing public education, talking to people, making them a little bit more savvy to phishing attempts and to luring in the online space, and how the different cyber crimes work, so that they actually do understand it. If I take any cybercrime and I explode it into its parts and I show people how it works and why it works, once I've shown you once, you will never forget it, and you will probably not get caught by that scam again, because you can see it and identify it for what it is. While people are a bit blind to it, they're still going to do it. We get to see the fallout. There's an unseen or hidden cost to cybercrime that nobody discusses. It's ignored. If you take into account, for example, a pensioner who takes the last R1 million in the bank that he's got and invests in some sort of online scheme because he believes that he's going to get a 20% return per month for the next year or two, and that's going to double up his pension savings, and he loses that money. While the focus falls to the victim, it's actually broader than the victim, because the victim inevitably is going to end up getting divorced, because there's going to be a fallout to him losing the marital pension fund. His kids, we've seen it quite often where the kids no longer talk to their parents because they believe the parents now squandered their inheritance, and they have to step up to the plate and support their parents financially because that money is not recoverable. The breakdown of marriages, the irretrievable breakdown of trust between friends who've recommended to each other that they join different schemes and scams, the breakdown of businesses, where businesses, literally SMEs, are falling prey to business email compromise, and they're losing 50 grand, 100 grand. You think, well, okay, it's a lot of money, but it should be survivable to a business, until you realize that's the entire cash flow component. And we've seen businesses go into liquidation because literally they've lost their cash flow to cybercrime, and it's irrecoverable to them. Practical guidance for victims of sextortion scams. Oh, grief. Those are very, 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 very difficult. Sextortion, very simple, common sense. That's one we see every week. People that are being blackmailed online because they've sent naughty pictures to people, because they have engaged with people online in an inappropriate manner and are now being blackmailed from it. Rule number one, I cannot take a photo of my own private parts and put them on Facebook because I feel like it. So a scammer cannot do that to me, can he? Scammer can threaten to put naked photos on me, heaven forbid, onto Facebook every day. He's not going to be able to. I couldn't even do it myself. I will be zucked within seconds and my account will be banned. Those scams are 90% about pressure and threat and relentless pressure of what might happen and what could happen. The follow through on it, we probably see somewhere to the order of around 10% where they actually carry through on their threats. It's more pressure based, and the rules there are pretty simple. There is nothing good that will ever come from your child taking a cell phone into a bathroom, the end. There is nothing good from a child or a teenager having a cell phone in their bedroom, the end. If your kids have cell phones, when they go to bed at night, those phones stay in the lounge on charge until tomorrow morning, the end. Rule number three, your children do not have privacy when it comes to cell phones. For the sake of their own safety, they don't. You as a parent need to have open access to that device and spot check it. My own kids didn't like it very much, but one of my own kids was subject to cyberbullying. And it was pretty nasty stuff. It took a while to unfathom it. If I hadn't had access to his device, I wouldn't have known what was going on. I wouldn't have been able to help him. And when you see the amount of kids that get DIY suicide kits from other kids, you're worthless, you need to kill yourself, here's a DIY guide on how. It's pretty nasty stuff, and parents need to take that seriously. Pig butchering, it's so real in South Africa. Pig butchering is fattening up the mark and then going at them from every direction. So they will start with a romance scam. And when you get wise to the romance scam and say, okay, I've been scammed, the next thing they're going to do is come at you with an investment scam, because they know you're now desperate, you've lost your money, you want to make it up, an attractive investment. Then they will come at you with an inheritance scam. The minute they've done that, they're going to come at you with a short-term scam. Then they're going to try and email compromise because they've got personal data to breach your account with. And it is relentless until they tap out the victim. One of the first things that we tend to ask victims when we see them and we interview them is, how many other attempts have there been, or how many other cyber crimes have you fallen prey to? And inevitably you'll find it's the second or third time they've been caught, or that the attempts are going to come. And you've got to make them wise to that. So you do learn the patterns of how organized syndicates work, how things like pig butchering work, so that you can prevent the next attack from taking place. Roxy, yes, pensioners are falling prey to things like the marketplace scams. Those are short scams, about 3,500 Rand, 5,000 Rand, lower values, because they can get the money by e-wallet. They don't have access to mule bank accounts yet, and those guys are still emerging. The problem is, if you've got one cell phone, one SIM card, and a bit of devious intent, you can easily make 10,000 Rand a week just running marketplace scams. It's not much work. It doesn't take long for you to realize that if you don't have a bank account for money to go into, you're going to tap out at 10,000 Rand a week. And the allure is always there. But if I get a bank account that's not traceable to me, I can go for 50,000 a week. That's easy too. Then I just need a laptop and a data connection, and I can run multiple profiles, multiple scams, multiple strands. So scalability, cybercrime has always got three pillars that it vests on: technology, scalability, and ultimately you have to have accessibility. the accessibility of bank accounts. Technology is easy. You can buy it, you can rent it, no problem there. Domain names, you can go online anywhere and buy domain names, not a problem. Technology, you can get websites built for you if you can't do them yourself, to do fake products and fake marketplace scams. What you can't do is go down to the bank and say, hi guys, I want 10 Capitec accounts that aren't in my name. That's not going to work. So you have to have the ability to open those accounts, manipulate those accounts, or get people to open them and manipulate them for you. Once you've unlocked that element, then you're on to 150, 100,000 Rand a week quite easily, tax-free. You've still got to launder that money because it's now too much money to spend on a daily basis. So you've got to get it back, and that's where the fraud aspect comes in of layering, placement, and integration. Of you've got to get the money out of the mule accounts into cash, from cash back into a legitimate business that you can then deposit the money in order to live off the proceeds. And that's where you see scammers starting to emerge within the syndicates and opening many legitimate businesses that transact online, that transact in cryptocurrencies, because it's easier to hide the money and live off of the proceeds. We, in terms of cryptocurrencies, we are starting. There's the beginnings of self-regulation. We're going to see regulation becoming an issue in South Africa with cryptocurrency. Is it a question of too little, too late? I'm not actually sure. I think there might still be time. A lot of the crypto boom has kind of slowed down, but it is still very aggressively used for terrorist funding and criminal fundings. It's still traceable, it's still auditable, but it's becoming a little bit harder.
Yeah, so Greg, just on that, maybe a bit of a silly question, but there's been this myth or misconception that crypto transactions are untraceable. Any comments on that? I read an article a while ago about a company called, I think it's Chain Analysis, somebody from Cape Town who built this app for the FBI. Maybe some insights into the traceability of crypto transactions?
Well, crypto transactions by nature are traceable. They have to be. It's a distributed ledger. And one of the underpinning technologies to crypto as a whole is that the ledger is publicly accessible. Anybody can go and see it. And you can see where one payment was made to another and the return value was returned to the other party, and you can audit it. It's the anonymity of wallets that's really at issue, because all you can see is the numbers. You can see the numeric value in the transaction processing and the wallet numbers, but you still don't know who they belong to. One of the primary challenges that you have is identifying which wallet and on which exchange a wallet belongs. If you have the wallet number and it's linked to a criminal transaction, you can certainly subpoena the KYC data that goes to that wallet. But you can only do that if you can identify which exchange it's on. Some exchanges can be identified by patterns, some can't. And again, you see the same patterns that are used in conventional money laundering, where online casinos and sport betting and gaming sites are used to launder the funds. So the money comes into the holding account of a gaming company. The cryptos are transferred in as a positive balance. They stay there for a day or two. The client, if you will, of that gaming platform then decides, I'm out, I want to eject, withdraw my funds, and instructs them to push the money out. The money doesn't come out of the same wallet. It comes out of the clearing wallet for that gaming site. So there's a disconnect between the transaction, and without the cooperation of the gaming site or the casino, it becomes near impossible to track down that transaction. We have regulation in many countries, but there are still a lot of countries that have deregulated or unregulated crypto marketplaces that do allow you to just register a wallet with a Gmail address and no more. They're becoming smaller. They are. Because when you open those wallets, you've got to wonder, am I going to get my money out? It's custodial wallet, but what if they just close their doors and disappear tomorrow? And they're as anonymous as I am. Am I comfortable leaving that kind of money with them? So that does kind of hedge it and keep people a little bit in line. We're seeing a lot more cooperation between law enforcement and the exchanges, where exchanges are actually quite well functional now for subpoena service and for giving quick access to law enforcement to KYC on wallets. The crypto industry understands the speed with which the money can be moved, so they respond quickly to legal requests when all your ducks are in a row. The conventional banking system is still very slow to respond to. Just a straight up subpoena on a bank account can take a couple of weeks, and that delay causes investigative delays. So in that respect, crypto is more advanced than conventional banking standards. Let's have a look. Are we tracing some of the breaches and accounts being compromised back to illegal streaming services? Yes, I'm not going to say too much on that one, Joel, but there are one or two of these little set-top box devices, Android devices that you can plug into your TV, and it gives you a whole bouquet of channels, and you can get free DSTV and you can get free sports channels. The trick to it is they're reliant on the fact that you as a consumer don't know how to program that device yourself. That's why you're looking for a plug-and-play solution. You have no idea what is on that device and how it's configured. So unfortunately, it is one of those buyer beware type situations where people are lured in by, I want free DSTV. There are no free rights. And if the person who's giving you that device is willing to break the law in order to give you the device, because it is illegal, do you really think they care about your privacy? Do you think they're going to hesitate for a second to pillage your data that's on that device? If you can't control the device, you have no idea.
Craig, maybe just a question from my side. In terms of successful prosecutions, and tracing these bad guys, because, you see these puppy scams on marketplace, and when you finally get to the other side and you identify the humans behind it, how successful is it putting them behind bars?
You want a politically correct answer? You want an honest answer?
I want the experience, Craig.
Not very. It's not. We don't have dedicated cybercrime courts in South Africa yet, so you're reliant on getting a prosecutor that understands the technology, the IP addressing, the way the trail has been put together. We're still battling. We're seeing courts that are still accepting screenshots of WhatsApp conversations as evidence. You see, mad. There's no evidentiary value to that. I can create that screenshot in a matter of seconds. It carries no weight to it. It's not correct in terms of the uniform rules of evidence and what should be presented. We don't have the capacity in terms of law enforcement yet. We are seeing the building out of the DPOC system, designated points of contact in terms of the Cybercrimes Act. We have the Cybercrimes Act now in play for the last 2 or 3 years, which is starting to filter through to some case law. We are seeing some good cases, but they are nominal, absolutely nominal, in terms of the volume that's there. In any given month, we probably have, Henry would probably know better than I do, I don't know, anywhere between 40 and 50 new cases that we take in. And these are only people that find their way to us, are adamant they want it investigated, and can still afford to have it investigated because we're a commercial practice after all. Of those, you'll probably find that the average time to prosecution, if you're able to identify a suspect, is about 3 to 5 years. The potential to recover the funds is low. We're honest with people. You're looking at 10 to 20% chance of recovering any funds at all, because that in itself has to go through another legal process. I can see that a suspect has taken R1 million from you and gone and bought himself a house. That doesn't mean I can just go and take his house. There's a forfeiture process that must be gone through. There could be other victims. If so, whose R1 million did you use to buy the house? And how is that forfeiture going to be handled? That's a process in itself, and you also can't forfeit it until there's criminal charges and there's a court ruling on it. There's a process that needs to be followed. You can preserve some of those assets possibly, but you certainly can't dispose of them. So it's quite common that victims will come to us and say, well, I've lost R1 million and I'm desperate. I need that R1 million back. If I don't get it back within a matter of weeks, my business will collapse, and then my house, etc., which is surety to the business, is gone as well. And the reality is, anything short of a miracle and the suspect voluntarily handing it back to you, it's not going to happen. There's no legal process that is quick enough that can deliver that kind of outcome. I truly wish there was, but there isn't. We do have specialized units within law enforcement to deal with cybercrimes. We have some brilliant skills within SAPS and the law enforcement channel. We do not have enough of them. And even when we do, they're still a little bit hamstrung by a court system that's getting used to technology, unfortunately. I wish I could paint a prettier picture, but that's the reality of what it is.
No, thank you, Craig. I'm just scrolling through to see if we didn't miss anything. But if there's any final closing questions, I think we can do 2 more questions, and then we should be on the hour. Anything else from anyone? Fraud in trusts.
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. In fact, I've just finished looking at one this afternoon. Part of the elements of fraud are layering, placement, and integration. So the layering is confusing where the funds went. Placement is making them accessible to you again by direct or indirect control. And then the integration is getting it back into the banking system where you can access the money and live off of the proceeds of. And trusts, unfortunately, still form a very good shelter for that. It's normal in due diligence when you appoint somebody into a company in a procurement position, they're in a position of financial control, to see what companies do they own, what entities are they a director of, to make sure that there's no competitive interest or anti-competitive interest. But how do you find somebody who registers a trust and then the trust becomes the primary shareholder of a PTY Limited, for example, and that mechanism is used then to trade back with the enterprise? It's particularly difficult. The master's office is nowhere near as accessible and online as we would like. They do have an online portal. It's not very current. It's not very user-friendly. It is something that has to be contemplated. In terms of policy, it's very important that it's contemplated, because we're all used to the fact that in our ICT or our general procurement policy, we will have a non-compete clause that you may not be a director of an entity that registers in the vendor chain of the company that you work for. You may not be a director. Can you be a shareholder? And does that extend to public companies or only private companies? And what about a trust? So if those aren't mentioned within the context of your policy, you could actually be creating a loophole as well. So it's a brilliant question. It is something that needs to be revised within policy, and definitely something that companies should be looking at, because it is a mechanism that can be used. Let's have a look. Henry's doing quite well. They're fielding some questions. Excellent. Can you recover from an encrypted hard drive with BitLocker or Trellix drive encryption? With great difficulty, great processing availability, probably not. No. BitLocker is a common problem in that most modern laptops have NVMe drives and run with BitLocker encryption. If you don't have that decryption key, you're not getting onto that drive. So within ICT policy, yes, it's very important from a forensic readiness perspective that you have that mechanism in play and that you have accessibility to the drives on the network, even though they may have BitLocker encryption, that you're not allowing individualized BYOD type devices that are encrypted. I would rate the chances of getting that off pretty low. By the same token, it's got to be noted that imaging of the newer Mac OS, not child's play. It's not child's play. If you don't have direct access to logging into that Mac and doing a file dump on it, your chances of a forensic recovery are very limited. You could do a side load on some of the Macs, but it's complex. And you probably need some specialized assistance with that. It's not a set it and forget it kind of exercise. So from a forensic readiness standard, that is something that companies also have to take into account. We have a lot of companies also asking us for things like WhatsApps. There's a company phone, it's company property, the data is company property. We want the last 2 years worth of WhatsApps. Good luck with that, because normally you can get the last 3 months of WhatsApps. Outside of that, that message store is pretty hard to access. It's not a given that you're going to get it. It does take work. It could be done. Do not live under the illusion that it can be done quickly, because it won't be done quickly. It's not a quick process. Grant's got a question. Other Grant.
Hi, Craig. Evening. Thanks for doing this. I just wanted to ask, I've heard you mention, quite a lot of, I can say, negatives, and the fact that the courses are expensive, the fact that there's no like cybercrime, not laws, but there's no cybercrime where you can actually, be caught. And what is your succession rates around prosecution, or how satisfying? Because I mean, if I spend a lot of money doing the course, going through all the trouble, only to find that, first of all, it's difficult for me. How easy to actually get into the industry? I know there's a gap that I heard you mention, but I mean, you understand how do would you encourage someone to actually join the space if they interested in it, but I have all these negatives to consider.
No.
Type of thing.
But that is actually a brilliant question. It is. I sat on the same precipice with doing my masters. In that the masters, I mean, you can easily sort of Google what the program costs. It's not a state secret. I mean, that the masters in terms of the learning is pretty much online with SANS. It cost me so far just over 500,000, and that's obviously not time. That's travel and tuition and exam fees, etc. And I sat there just like you guys do. It's like, for fuck's sake, am I going to pillage that kind of money out of my savings, and is it going to be worth it? Am I going to get the return on investment? And it's nerve-wracking. And I mean, how do you do that ROI calculation? It is a big jump to take. SANS is structured, unfortunately, for companies to pay for the education, and it's set up that companies are by and large going to be paying for your education because they're going to be getting the tax benefit, the tax advantage from it. What I would suggest is a softer route into the industry. I would not jump in boots and all at a couple of $100,000. I wouldn't do it, purely because the element of risk is huge. Again, Grant asked me to be here and said I could be blunt, so it's his fault. What if you go and you do a SANS course, you commit the 300,000 and you suck? I mean, it could happen. It could happen. It's a very, very meticulous technical field. And it's like, what if I suck at it? What if it's not what I think it is, and I don't like the work that I'm required to do or the mindset that goes with it? The slower and easier way into it is you can look up a company called Sumuri, Sumuri. Sumuri do some extremely good training. They have an open source forensics course that they run. It costs about 25 grand, I think. And as a base layer, as a starting point, it sets a framework. It's going to teach you the fundamentals of registry forensics, drive geometry, hex values, why hex and binary storage are the foundation of forensics. It's going to teach you the basics of how ports are managed within a technical environment and how one trace leads to another. And it's going to give you the starting blocks. And it's either going to ignite a passion or it's not. If it bores you to death, stop, walk away, find another part of forensics that interests you. There will be other parts. If forensic artifacts and digital forensics is for you, start with something like Sumuri. It's still 25 grand, but it's the cost of the course relative to what you're going to get out of it is kind of about right. It's great knowledge. They're kind of practical. There are practical exercises to do, that kind of thing. There's another one that you can also look at, DFCB, which is the Digital Forensic Certification Board that runs through IAFCI. The DFCB training is probably also in the 25 to 30 grand range. The benefit of both of those is if you take Sumuri and you do the Sumuri or you do the DFCB, and you use that as your foundational training, and then you add experience onto it, you can circumvent SANS. You can leave SANS as a training institute, just take an exam attempt at the GIAC exam. Some people can do it. I do know some people that have done it, that have got the background knowledge, that have got the experience and say, stuff this, I don't want to attend a 5-day course internationally. I want to write the exam. The exam pass rate is relentless. It is 70%, 70%, or 70%. So you really do have to prep for it properly. You've got to get your ducks in a row, but it's not impossible. You can do it without spending a few hundred grand. If I had to go back in my career and start by doing a BSc computer sciences and then do forensics immediately afterwards, would I do it that way? No, I wouldn't. Wouldn't do it. I still like to work up through the trenches. Start with a technical background, then learn the other elements of the legal requirements, learn about fraud and money, learn about cybercrime as a whole, learn about the forensic aspects, the registry analysis, the understanding of how Windows works as an operating system, where the trace elements are going to be left, how to access them correctly, how to preserve them as evidence. I'd still do it the hard way over and over again. Henry will probably swear and curse and disagree with me because he's now on that hard path, but it's still the best way to learn, because you have the confidence that when you do go to court and the court says, okay, so you've done an MD5 hash on these files to authenticate them. What does that mean? Explain it to me. And why is it different from SHA-256? Or you chose to SHA-256 to avoid the potential hash collision.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? What does it mean? And you've got to explain it to a court in layman's terms that are technically correct, but still verifiable. I'd rather have the technical experience of doing it than have the textbook knowledge. That's just me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the degree track. I'm just saying that this is, to me, that's the way that I've grown with it. I've learned by doing.
Yes.
And doing it the hard way. And let's be honest, I didn't have the couple of $100 grand to spend years ago when I started. and I had to do that ROI calculation. At the end of the day, I've done my master's and spent the money, not because I wanted to. And please, God, do not show this to my wife.
But thanks. That's a very comprehensive answer, Craig. And I really appreciate your insights and advice and all the resources you've said. I think I would like to also speak to you a bit further, obviously off this meeting, but I'll catch you on LinkedIn and we can have a little bit deeper discussion. But I'm very interested. It's very interesting, this actual field that you're speaking about. So yeah, hoping to chat a little bit further about you regarding this.
With pleasure.
Thank
Craig,
you.
We've got one. We are over time, but the conversation is quite interesting. If you don't mind, we can go another 6 minutes until 8:15, if that's fine with you.
Yep.
Then we will tackle one or two more questions. There's a fair number of questions related to AV and those things. I'm skipping over those questions purposefully because I will respond to that after the call. I think there's some opportunity here to get some deep forensic specific insights from Craig.
Yep.
All other questions I will answer, but just bear with us. So Craig, I saw one here around Edgar just asked a question about Linux OS platform forensics analysis. Could you maybe respond to that question for us?
Okay, so Linux OS as a forensic analysis. Look, Windows is definitely more prevalent by far, but it's not to be ignored because of the number of IoT devices that you have running on a Linux kernel. So everything and anything from GPS, a drone, to mechanical engineering systems that could be that you need to analyze to establish if the device was at fault or if there was a compromise. CCTV systems dominantly run on Linux and have to be analyzed and extracted separately to Windows and Mac type systems. Very different architecture. Also, if you're able to understand Linux as a concept and as a file structure, then your life is going to be a hell of a lot easier when you have to work with Android devices like Android phones. Because of the obvious similarities. At the same time, if you are only able to work in a Windows environment when it comes to forensics, you really are going to be very, very, very limited in what you can do. There are certain things that you do need to turn to the world of Linux for processing speed and reliability. So upping your Linux skills, or if you don't have them, just diving in and getting some, I would highly recommend that before you hit the study path. Just get the basics, understand how it works, fiddle with it. It's a very good place to learn.
Any other final questions before we wrap it up?
Yeah, one question for Craig, a very quick one. So Craig, in terms of internships, do you guys offer any at your company specific, and what would you look for? What's the requirements for someone to be able to do an internship with you guys, if it's possible?
Well, we're cautious with interns. I mean, Henry came to us as an intern several years ago, and he still keeps coming into the office every day. We do take in interns. We do. We like Henry. You better come into the office tomorrow. Don't take that as an invite. We do take internships. The way that I've designed and engineered the company over the years. Our bookkeeper, before she started with us as a bookkeeper, she's now about to qualify as accountant. She was a nail technician. We have guys that have been students before they've come to us. We have guys, we've had a chef before he turned to the world of IT. We've had admin assistants that have come into the role. We've had personal assistants that have come into forensics and grown into the role. Each company is different. I don't ever believe in hiring on qualification. I hire the person. If you have the right personality, you have the right motivation and the right drive, we can teach you the skill. But if you have the right skill and your personality sucks, well, there's not much I can do to help you there. So it depends company to company, but we are we do take in interns. We hire very slowly. We take our time to find the right person, because the company obviously invests quite a substantial amount of time and money in an intern. You're going to be paying an intern a salary for a year or two and paying their education, knowing that they will only be ready to produce bankable results in 2 years' time. So it's a very big financial commitment from the company, and it's easy with an intern to commit R250,000 in 2 years before you can actually start leaving them unattended to do work and to develop results. So the relationship and the trust between the intern and the company and the intern has got to be there. The intern obviously knows that they're going to earn less than they're worth while they're still learning, but you're going to be teaching them all the stuff that's not in a textbook. That's the whole point of it.
Which is much more valuable,
Yeah. So it's a very valuable relationship when you have the right person and the right company, and you can kind of gel that together.
Yes. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah. Craig, thank you.
Tracy had one question there just very quickly, which is a good one. Is age a factor? No, it's not. Not at all. It's ability and passion. That is the only thing that counts. Age is a by the by. Look at me, I'm old.
Craig, thank you so much. I think I want to say we're on the hour, we're way over the hour, but it's evident now that when I invite you again, I must invite you for 2 hours. All right. So thank you. I can say from my side, it's been very interactive, very informative. I think a lot of value was gained here. We have recorded this, and with your blessing, we'll make it available on YouTube for those who missed it. And I just want to express a sincere thank you to you for your time, sharing your insights, your knowledge, your passion with us. And I also want to say thank you to those online who joined the call and engaged with us. And I want to just say thank you and have a great evening, everybody. And I hope this was informative in some way. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you very much. Thanks, Grant, for the opportunity to chat to everybody. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you've got any questions. Henry, thank you for jumping in and getting dragged in there. Cheers, Grant. Cheers, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye. Keep well.
Cheers, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.